Who's this Howard Buffett? I mean, he's speaking on the same show as Eva Longoria. I'm a little confused as to who he is, but he's somebody who's very successful and wealthy. It seems like wherever he is he related to Warren Buffett? I don't know. What he just said, you know, he knows he's on TV with millions of viewers. I resent what he just said. It's a stupid thing to say and a stupid way to say it. They asked him, Piers Morgan always asks him about these guests about the sort of issues on the political table, but okay, fine, you don't expect them. They're not politicians. Who is this guy? Is he some kind of like millionaire or something, or I don't know who he is. But he's someone like that, He was asked about raising the minimum wage. He just said, yeah, he just put an idea in people's heads, but only being furthered by nasty people who are like, economists and stuff. But it's not the right statement to make, and he's not an economist. What he said, this is all he had to say on national TV to millions of people about, remember, the minimum wage. I mean, that's like paying people starving wages. I mean, that really, you can't live on that. And there's so many employees being paid. I mean, McDonald's, you know how many people they employ? I mean, who knows? I mean, he was asked about it. He said, he said what these other jerks, dumb people say, and people in our Congress, and people who are, in the employ of institutes that just serve corporations. He said, well, yeah, people should be aware when they hear statements like this. He said, well, yeah, you see, it's important to raise the minimum wage, and I'm for it, but, there's a point at which, you raise it to a level where, corporations may affect the behavior of corporations towards their employees. The point at which we wouldn't want to raise it too much because corporations may begin to lay people off or something. That's all he said. This is the kind of thing where he should say. He's not a policymaker. He should say, he's this wealthy, whoever he is. He should say they should certainly raise it to $15 an hour, and any corporation that would claim they need to fire workers as though a multi-billion-dollar corporation can't pay their employees $15 an hour without somehow suffering, a loss of profits is just not true. They can certainly pay their employees a livable wage and keep the same amount of employees. These are multi-billion-dollar corporations. If they were to raise the minimum wage and they began firing people, then we know how morally bankrupt these billion-dollar corporations are. That's the accurate statement. He's just furthering the idea. I know, yeah, they might behave. They might start firing people if you raised it, but that's not like an economic point to make. That tells you about the depravity of the people running it. Billion-dollar corporations. They see. By the way, a lot of people don't know, and he does know, and he should say it. Michael Bloomberg's a billionaire. But I know people who've worked in very low positions with the Bloomberg organization. People who are interns and who paid interns and also people in very low positions. Do you know that he does something that many of the people I grew up around own corporations do? Pays his the lowest level employees a very high wage considering what they're doing. He's a billionaire. It's the right thing to do, and what it does is, he says it's the right thing to do, but also it creates an environment where the people working at that level are very, pleased with what they're being paid, and they're making much more here than they would elsewhere for the same kind of work. It creates good morale among the employees, and also it's the moral thing to do. That's what a billionaire with a conscience does. He even pays the interns like $10 an hour. So it creates a good work environment. All kinds of people who are, the kind of work they're doing doesn't, people try to pay them, very, very little, but that's no way to run a corporation. You want to pay them something that makes them want to come to work and do a good job, keeps the morale high, and certainly we can afford to pay it at the Bloomberg organization. That's the attitude of a lot of people who are have multi-million dollar and billion-dollar corporations. That's not. It was this idea they're furthering on the news that it's some kind of law of economics that if you take people or you're paying something they can't even live on, like the minimum wage, were you to raise it, it would somehow mandate or force them to start firing people because their profits would be effective. Not when you're talking about billion-dollar corporations, but that's not even normal behavior. The Bloomberg's attitude towards paying the lowest down people something that they wouldn't make elsewhere. I grew up around people who did that. It's another way of practicing business. That if you're making that much money, you could do, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it's not a law of economics that you'd have to lay people off. He doesn't need to say this. It furthers the idea in the heads of ignorant people who don't understand a lot of things that they can't raise the minimum wage because it would lead to mass firings, not at billion-dollar corporations. That could be, and by the way, that could be the movement. Some places the minimum wage can't be raised at like a small, thing or whatever. But the issue is, should multi-billion-dollar corporations not raise the minimum wage at those kind of corporations? That's the real question that has to do with people having a conscience, and it's done all the time and done by people who really know how to not exploit people and how to have a functioning, corporation. That's the truth. That he should know. He does know that. He's decided not to say it.